Rama Rama Hare Hare Jai Ram Sankirtan Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki
Jai.
And ask everybody to please come forward. I'm feeling lonely over here. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda.
Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda.
Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda.
Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda.
Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda.
Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda.
Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda.
Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda.
Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda.
Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda.
Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda.
Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda.
Hare Krishna, I'll chant the invocation prayers before starting. Om Jnana
Timirandasya Jnananjana-shalakaya Chakshurumilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam. Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Guru Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sarvagana Raghunatham Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parisharasahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sarvagana Raghunatham Shri Vishakam Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Deenabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Takta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpa Tarubhyasya Kripa Sindhu Vairacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Namo Vishwapadaya Krishna Prasaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swamine Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna. So, what are we discussing today? So this is day 3 of our seminar of Shri Siksakstakam. So I look forward to completing the journey, but in essence it's really the beginning of the journey. This is really just laying the seed, hopefully, for a lifelong pursuit of studying the Siksakstakam. It is an endless ocean of knowledge, of nectar, and of bliss. So today we'll continue our discussion. So as we've discussed, this Siksakstakam is a set of 8 instructions that provide the complete essence of all devotional knowledge. It was spoken by Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in various times during his pastimes, and collected in Srila Rupa Goswami's Padyavali. And Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami has compiled them together in the final chapter, the final word of the most glorious Chaitanya Charitamrita, appearing in the 20th chapter of Antyalila. And thus we can understand its great importance. And the Siksakstakam prayers, they bring us through a progression of consciousness from the very beginning, neophyte, immature stage of bhakti, to the highest realm of devotional service. And that is what we'll see today. And as we have been saying, we've been discussing the commentaries primarily from Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, and Srila Prabhupada on the Siksakstakam prayers. So they have provided extraordinary wisdom and insight in how to understand these most potent prayers. So that has been the basis of our discussion. So we discussed the 8 verses of Siksakstakam, and there is a beautiful flow. And we'll summarize at the end the 8 verses again, so I won't spend much time on this, but just highlighting where we are. So today we'll be discussing the final 3 verses, verses 6, 7, and 8. And the first 5 verses, we know, they establish our Sambandha Gyan, our relationship with Krishna. They clearly illuminate who am I as spirit soul, in part and parcel of Krishna. Come, don't sit far. Why not? And what is our eternal desire or position? To be servant of Krishna. And we concluded in that last verse. So having concluded Sambandha Gyan, now we're going to see in these last 3 verses the result of acting in this relationship. So the first 5 verses, we have some context for. We understood the 7 powerful effects of chanting. We understood, I don't have any attraction for the holy names. I've realized, yes, they're not hard and fast rules though for chanting. We've talked about the 4 beautiful qualities of humility, tolerance, offering respects, not expecting respect. Things we can somewhat relate to, at least aspire for, down to the ultimate of being desirous of being served, being the servant of the Supreme Lord. Now these last 3 verses are going to illuminate, these symptoms of one who has reached the highest stages of bhakti. And that we may not have any direct relation or experience with yet in our journey. But it establishes the goal and highlights to us what awaits us if we practice our sadhana very sincerely. What is the sweet experience that awaits the practitioner of devotional service as they progress through these higher levels? So that is where we'll focus today, these 3 verses. And some of it may seem wow, and hopefully it does. And that wow hopefully inspires us to take to our practice of Krishna consciousness very seriously, and most specifically, to take to our practice of chanting the holy names with great enthusiasm and sincerity. Okay? So this is what we'll discuss. I'm not going to review the first verses, but I will review again this very important 10 offenses in chanting of the holy names. Because, as Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur has been telling us, in order to acquire the attraction to chant, we must very systematically and decisively work to eliminate the offenses that we are committing, knowingly or unknowingly. And so if we are chanting and we have not yet developed this great attraction, we can look here to see how I can adjust my process to reduce these offenses down to 0. Then the attraction will come. And when one chants without offenses, what happens? One is adorned with these 4 very beautiful qualities. The qualities of humility, tolerance, offering respects to all, and having no expectation of respect. These 4 beautiful qualities adorn one who chants the holy names of the Lord constantly. And in such state, one can chant the holy names of the Lord constantly. With attraction to it, one will naturally be inclined to chant 24/7 a day. This is the condition. By following those 10 offenses. But we also learned that one must sever the ties to all the material attachments that hold us back, tie us down from elevating, rising to the higher levels of bhakti. And by severing these ties, even for the desire of liberation, one can rise to the highest platforms. And we know that the ultimate desire is to be picked up from the ocean of death and be placed as one of the atoms at the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord. And in this verse we see that it is by the mercy of Krishna, in response to our desire, that we can uplift ourselves. By our own efforts, we'll not be able to save ourselves. But only by the mercy of Krishna can we be uplifted to this highest platform. But it takes our sincere desire. Krishna will reciprocate according to our desire. And so our job is to have strong desire. And we'll talk more about that in the coming verses. But this is where we finish off yesterday, concluding the Sambandha Gyan. And now we'll be discussing these higher levels of devotional service. So a little bit of a review of the 9 steps from Shraddha to Prema. Just to illustrate how far in consciousness we have come. We've talked about Sambandha Gyan, Abhideya Gyan, Prayojana. We've talked about Sadhana Bhakti, Bhava Bhakti, Prema Bhakti. This is a third dimension of progression of consciousness. So our journey starts with some faith, Shraddha, some faith that maybe this is something I should spend some time with. And with that faith, we then begin to sadhu sangha, associate with the devotees of the Lord. And in association, we then become inspired to practice bhajana kriya. Practice under the guidance of Guru, who can teach us the process of devotional service. And through very good practice, this bhajana kriya, then one will purify the heart, the 4th step, anartha nivriti. Become free of the impurities in the heart, the unwanted things that reside here. We cannot extract them with any kind of surgery or any angioplasty or any other type of mechanism. It is through the process of Jaito Darpana Marjanam, chanting of the holy names. That is what cleanses the heart. So these anarthas become removed. When we become free of our anarthas, then we can come to the 5th stage, which is fixed in devotional service. What does fixed mean? It means no other desires. When the heart is free of all other material desires, what remains? Only spiritual desires. And thus, all of one's thoughts are constantly in Krishna, and thus one is fixed. So this position of being fixed, right now we are vacillating back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, because of the anarthas. But by the removal of the anarthas, then one becomes fixed. When one is fixed in devotional service, then ruchi, the taste of the holy names come. The taste is so sweet, so blissful, that one wants to keep chanting. One is seeing Krishna dancing on their tongue. When one reaches this 6th stage, of ruchi, then one actually experiences this vision of seeing Krishna dancing. And it's so sweet that one wants to keep chanting, to relish that taste more and more. And each time that taste is experienced, it is higher and higher than the previous time. This is ruchi. But it occurs after one has sufficiently come through all these other prior 5 processes. And when one has experienced the taste of bhakti, the taste of the holy names, then one becomes a Shakti attached, addicted. It's so overwhelmingly sweet and happy that one cannot get enough. Millions of tongues is not sufficient to chant the holy names, let alone one. This is how sweet it is. So this Ashakti comes. And when a Shakti is there, when one is fully attached, then Bhava Bhakti arises. And from Bhava Bhakti, it is the budding stage, the preliminary stage of prema. So the first 5 verses, they took us through these first 7 steps. And now we'll be entering the Bhava Bhakti and Prema Bhakti stages. So this gives us some indication of how far we've already progressed in the study of the first 5 verses of Siksakstakam. And these last 3 now will take us into a very sweet discussion of devotion. So we'll now recite the full Siksakstakam. How many have already recited Siksakstakam today? Okay, a few more than yesterday. Hopefully by tomorrow. How many hands will be up? Who will recite tomorrow? Tomorrow's Ekadashi. Everybody is saying let's recite tomorrow?
Yes.
Okay. Well, we'll start today. Now. So we'll recite all the verses and then we'll discuss verse 6. Ready? Cheto darpanamarjanam bhava mahadava nirnivapanam Shreya kaidava chandrika vikaranam Vidyavadu jivanam Anandam buddhivardhanam Patipadam purnamrita swadanam Savam param vijayate Shri Krishna sankirtanam Nam namakari bahuda nitya sarva shaktis Tatrarpita niyamita smarane nakaraha Vedasya Bhagavamapi Durdaiva Vidasham Mahajanina Anuragaha Trinadapi Sunichena Tarorapi Sahishnuna Amanina Manadena Kirtaniya Sasari Nadanam Najanam Nasundarim Kalitam Vajareisha Samaye Mahajanishware Bhavata Bhakti Ahitiki Tvai Ainanga Danuja Kinkaram Patitam Mishame Bhavambuddha Kripaya Kampala Pambuddha Stita Duli Sadasham Vichintaya Nayanam Galarishtu Daraya Varanam Gagadadudaya Gira Udakaya Nichitam Vapukara Tavanama Gahane Bhavishyasi Yugayatam Nimishena Chashusha Pravashayatam Shunyayatam Jagat Sarvam Govinda Virahenane Ashrisya Vaparaitam Vinashtumam Adarshanam Mamatam Karotuva Yathatava Vidarato Mapato Mapralas Tatastu Saevanapara Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So, we'll recite just a translation for this one, which is, O my Lord, when will my eyes be decorated with tears of love flowing constantly when I chant your holy names? When will my voice choke up? And when will the hairs of my body stand on end at the recitation of your name? So this is a very sweet prayer Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is asking. When is it going to happen? When are these ecstatic symptoms? So these are symptoms of Bhava Bhakti. Devotional service in ecstatic love. This is the 6th verse. So Bhava Bhakti, as we just saw, is a very advanced stage. Right? One is free of anarthas, fully fixed, having the taste, attachment, deep, intense attachment. So it's a very advanced stage of devotional service. One is intensely, 24 hours a day, relishing the ecstatic love of chanting the holy names. And there's a continuous, an unbroken mood. So this is in the perfected stage. Up to this point, We are in the sadhana bhakti. Bhakti in practice. Practicing to reach the perfected stage. So now we're entering the perfected stage. And it's perfected because Bhava Bhakti is called the budding stage of prema. We know prema, bhakti, love of Krishna. That is the ultimate and highest achievement one can get. And Bhava Bhakti is called the budding stage. Just like on a flower plant. When we see a bud, we know what is coming very soon? A flower. But until the bud comes, we have doubts. Will it come? Will it not come? You know, if we have a jasmine plant here, we wonder, will a flower come? Will a flower come? But when we see a bud, we get excited. Why? Because we know that flower is coming very soon. Okay? So like that, when one has reached Bhava Bhakti, Prema Bhakti is just coming in the next to it, very quickly, very soon after. So this is, so the path from Sadhana Bhakti to Bhava Bhakti is quite long. It is a long process. But the path from Bhava Bhakti to Prema Bhakti is? So this is why it's considered still in the perfected state. It is just a matter of some time. So in Bhava Bhakti, by the very good practice of sadhana, the heart has become very soft, very pliable, and now becomes eligible to receive Krishna's mercy. As we saw in the last verse, without Krishna's mercy, we cannot elevate to these highest platforms of bhakti. We cannot even practice the beginning stages of bhakti without the mercy of Krishna. But specifically, when the heart becomes very soft, Krishna then bestows his Shuddha potency, specifically this Samvit Shakti and his Haladini Shakti. These two potencies enter into the heart by the mercy of Krishna. Samvit Shakti means the ability to know Krishna, to understand Krishna. We cannot know him in full, but we can know him in small parts. The ability to know him comes from Krishna. And his Haladini Shakti. This pleasure potency of Krishna. To experience the happiness of bhakti. That is also a mercy from Krishna. So these two things are injected into the heart when it becomes sufficiently soft. You know, when the heart is stone-like. If you have a stone and you try to inject something into a stone, what happens to your needle? It breaks. But when you have a ripened mango, and then you try to insert a needle, what happens? It easily enters. So similarly, when the heart becomes sufficiently soft, then by the mercy of Krishna, these two Shaktis enter the heart, and this bhava begins to manifest. This ecstatic love in Krishna begins to take hold. So without it, it cannot happen. And so of the 9 limbs of bhakti, the 9 processes, Shravanam, Kirtanam, Shmaranam, Bandhanam, Padasevanam, as we go on, the 9 bhakti, all of them are very powerful in devotional service. But in particular, the chanting of the holy names becomes enthused and ecstatic in Bhava Bhakti. They all are potent, but in particular the chanting in Bhava Bhakti becomes very enthused and ecstatic. And so, how to get to this stage? How do we get here? It is through very sincere and determined practice of our sadhana bhakti. We must establish a goal in our sadhana bhakti. Just like anything we do, if we don't have a goal, then the outcome is not so good. If I just get in the car and start driving, what is the result if I'm just driving? I don't accomplish much. I move, the car is moving, I'm driving, but my accomplish. But if I establish getting it, I want to go to Radha Kunj Vihari's home, and then I start driving, then the value of my driving has been realized because I've established a very great goal, and now I'm working towards that. So what is our goal of sadhana? Why am I chanting the holy names every day, reading, rendering service, following the orders of Guru, studying this? What is my goal? Rupa Goswami explains in Nectar of Devotion, the goal of practicing our sadhana is to awaken Bhava Bhakti. So we should establish this goal very firmly in our heart. And when we do, then we'll make great progress in our sadhana. Otherwise, without a goal, our sadhana still has potency, but doesn't have as much as we can. And we know that with this well-defined goal, we'll quickly reach it. Why? Because this Bhava Bhakti may seem like, wow, how is this even possible for me? I am so full of anarthas. I can barely practice bhajana kriya. Even sadhu sanghas, even shred of faith, I'm not sure where my faith is. How I'm ever going to come to this very advanced stage. Right? That doubt may be in our mind. So we should know and have faith that the regular principles of sadhana bhakti are so perfect, so powerful, so precisely prescribed that if we practice them as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu instructed to Rupa Goswami, and as Rupa Goswami has put into the Nectar of Devotion, the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, in extensive detail, exactly how to practice sadhana bhakti, then this Bhava Bhakti is guaranteed. If we just follow the formula. Rupa Goswami in the Eastern Ocean of Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, the first 19 chapters, has given us exactly how to awaken this Bhava Bhakti. And we should remember the most important thing, that this Bhava Bhakti, this Prema Bhakti, it is the intrinsic nature of each of us. It is not trying to aspire for something we don't even have today. It is here in our heart. It is just dormant. So by the serious and precise practice of our sadhana, we can very quickly open and awaken this Bhava Bhakti. Rupa Goswami says, even if you practice one of the 5 potent angas of sadhana bhakti, one of them is sufficient to awaken Bhava Bhakti. And Srila Prabhupada, by his unending mercy for us, established that in the Mangalarti morning program, we do all 5 of the potent angas, which is worshipping the deity, studying Srimad Bhagavatam, chanting the holy names, serving the devotees, and residing in the holy Dham. These 5 things we do every morning program. And thus, we have great hope if we follow the guidance. And we know what are the first 5 angas of sadhana bhakti Rupa Goswami has explained. First 5 all relate to taking initiation from a bona fide spiritual master. Because the Guru will teach us how to practice these elements. So this is how this very high platform of Bhava Bhakti will be reached. So I wanted to discuss briefly the 9 symptoms of Bhava Bhakti. This will give us some further illustration of how advanced this platform is, and what, by good practice, we also will reach if we remain sincere. So the first is out of order. So the first is this utilization of time. So one in Bhava Bhakti has a great value on their time. They see every moment as an opportunity to serve and please Krishna. And they know with all the wealth in the world, one cannot buy back even 1 second. And so the advanced devotee, the devotee in Bhava Bhakti, is fully utilizing their time. We can ask ourselves, in a given day of 24 hours, how much time we have wasted on things that don't provide real value. We can start to take a log. It'll be startling. But the pure devotee knows the value of time and uses 100% in devotional service. The second symptom is they persevere. We saw tolerance in the 3rd verse. In the midst of so many disturbances, they remain determined and reserved, calm, never unsettled, knowing who is ultimately in control? Krishna. And their responsibility is to do the best that they can do in light of any circumstance and surrender to the will and plan of Krishna. And this is the platform of the pure devotee. 3, detachment. indifferent to material objects. Now we may say, wait a minute, we saw this in which verse? Which verse did we talk about detachment from material objects? 4. Nadanam, najanam, nasundarim. Right? Janmani, janmani. Even birth after birth. The pure devotee is so detached that even in the midst of allurements, they have no attraction. We detach ourselves by closing our eyes to the things that distract us, by pulling ourselves away. But the pure devotee can be in the midst of all allurements, material allurements, and it doesn't even register because their consciousness is so fixed in spiritual work. I think I've told this many times, but it's one reporter asked Srila Prabhupada, what miracle can you do? And she was expecting some fanciful answer of floating in the air, walking on water, grabbing a mango from a faraway tree, and what he said? He said, I can be in a room full of naked people and I'll not be the least disturbed. This is the symptom of Bhagavad, not disturbed in the midst of allurements. 4, absence of false prestige, to be totally humble. Rupa Goswami and Srila Prabhupada comment that one who can remain humble when one has great position and great right to be proud, that is the sign of Bhagavad Bhakti. One who is very advanced in devotional service, but yet remains extremely humble. And actually the definition of advancement in devotional service is the extent of our humility. Recognizing that we are the tiny spark of the Supreme Lord. 5. We talked a little bit about this yesterday, this Ashabandha, right? Hope against hope. The expectation that Krishna's mercy will come. Saying, Krishna, I have no other possibility of success in my life but you. And you are the unlimited loving Father. Of course, your mercy will come. Not demanding it out of pride, but expecting it out of great humility and desperation. This is a symptom of one in Bhagavad Bhakti. 6, an intense eagerness to achieve Krishna Prema, this perfected state. Rupa Goswami Srila Prabhupada comment that to acquire anything of value, you have to pay some price, right? So what is the price, the value of Prema Bhakti? What is that price? What monetary value we can put on it? Nothing. But there is a price we must pay, and that is eagerness. And so how eager we should be? Well, how great Prema Bhakti is. We should be intensely eager. So the devotee in Bhagavad Bhakti is not, it'll be nice. If it comes, okay. No. Strong determination. Intense eagerness for this. If we pray for this eagerness, then it will manifest. Even the eagerness itself comes by the mercy of Krishna. But we should understand, this is the price one must pay to obtain Bhagavad Bhakti. Intensely. We must have strong desire. When Krishna sees the strong, sincere desire, ye tamam prapadyante tam satayana vijaya, he will reciprocate according to that desire. But he wants to see that it is sincere. So this is the price. 7, a thirst for chanting the holy names of the Lord. We know, when we are thirsty, what do? Drink water. And when do we stop drinking water? When the thirst is? When is the pure devotee's thirst for the holy names quenched? And so when do they stop chanting? They just keep chanting. Strong thirst for the holy names. I love this word. It's so something we can relate to. But this is the nature. Constantly chanting the holy names of the Lord. And intense pleasure in discussing the names, forms, pastimes, and qualities of the Lord. Relishing all of their pastimes. Any mundane literature topic doesn't have any, cannot even enter the consciousness because they're so fixed in their happiness in enjoying And finally, they are desiring and residing in the holy places of the Lord, such as Vrindavan. So these are the symptoms of Bhava Bhakti. And what we see here is these are not, fakeable symptoms, right? These are characteristics that one must have truly in the heart to be able to demonstrate. Because there are these Ashtasattva Vikars, these ecstatic symptoms that Rupa Goswami explains, that they actually begin to manifest in Bhava Bhakti. These 8 ecstatic symptoms, they begin to manifest. When the devotee thinks of Krishna, tears begin to flow from the eyes. When they are chanting Krishna's name, their voice is starting to falter, like we saw in this verse. These ecstatic symptoms, there are specifically 8 of them. There are like paralysis and perspiration, goosebumps, the skin becomes very pale, fainting, loss of voice, trembling, these 8 symptoms. But these symptoms, in the pure state, they manifest unchecked, meaning when they just happen. Even if one tries to suppress them, they just emerge out of this natural way. That unfortunately, we see sometimes pretenders, can try to manifest some of these symptoms, putting some ointment in the eyes so that they tear, and things like that. So but these 9 symptoms of bhakti, these are like these internal characteristics. But these 8 ecstatic symptoms, they manifest in the beginning slight stages when one is in Bhava Bhakti. And that's why we saw in this verse, when will my voice choke up? When will the hairs on my body stand on end at the recitation of your holy names? So these are some of the symptoms. And what these happen when we chant very purely. So now we'll move to the 7th verse, which is Yugayatam nimishena chakshusa pravashayatam shunayatam jagat sarvam Govinda virahena me. Oh Govinda, feeling your separation, I am considering a moment to be like 12 years or more. Tears are flowing from my eyes like torrents of rain, and I'm feeling all vacant in the world in your absence. Now the tears are flowing like torrents of rain. So we are transitioning from Bhava Bhakti to Prema Bhakti in this verse. This verse brings us to the mature state of Bhava Bhakti and the initial stages of Prema Bhakti. Okay? So the 8 ecstatic symptoms, these Anubhav symptoms we start to see here. The 8 ecstatic symptoms and the Anubhav. The Anubhav symptoms are like, we read in Chaitanya Charitamrita, the rolling on the ground and the loud outbursts and roaring laughter and these sort of symptoms. They become fully expressed in Prema Bhakti. We see them initially in Bhava Bhakti, and now they are fully manifest in Prema Bhakti. So you can turn off the phones, please. So, in Prema Bhakti, there are extreme attraction, deep affection, and this spontaneous dedication to Krishna. This is the symptoms of Prema Bhakti. Deep affection, extreme attraction, this spontaneous dedication. Meaning it happens naturally. And there's a sense of even possessiveness, my Krishna. This manifests in the mood of Prema Bhakti. And in this verse, we see a very important mood. We see the mood of separation. By this statement, I'm feeling all vacant in the world in your absence. This mood of separation is called Vipralamba. Vipralamba Seva. Separation, even for a moment, is unbearable. In the Mahabhava stage, the highest stage of Prema Bhakti, one doesn't even want to blink the eyes. Why? Because that moment of separation is intolerable. Nimisha means nimish means to blink the eye. The blink of the eye, how long it feels? 12 years or more. This is the intensity of attachment that one in Prema Bhakti has. Such a deep and sweet state. So, we struggle how that can be. So with a mundane example, we can try to, relate to this separation from Krishna. Imagine if I ask you all, okay, ready? Take a deep breath. Hold your breath. Hold it. Hold it. And now how anxious you are to take a breath. You are separated from air for a few moments. How anxious we want to take that breath. Like that, if we are waiting, how anxious. That is the anxiety a devotee in Krishna Prema feels when they are a moment separated from Krishna. As if we were separated from our beloved oxygen. Just to give us some context to try to relate to this very high stage of love of Krishna. But this is the mood. That even a moment is not tolerable. Right? Great intention. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, in describing this verse, says very sweetly, this is the 40th verse of the 20th chapter. In my agitation, a day never ends, for every moment seems like a millennium, pouring incessant tears. My eyes are like clouds in the rainy season. Torrents of rain. Now here, what it feels like to be in separation. The three worlds have become void because of separation from Govinda. I feel as if I were burning alive in a slow fire. How descriptive Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is. Burning alive in a slow fire. Just giving us some understanding of what it's like to be separated from Krishna. So, right now, when we finish our japa and we become ecstatic. We are now separated from our bead bag for some time. I'm done. But soon, by the good practice of our japa, that will flip and one will become ecstatic, never wanting to leave the process of chanting the holy name. But right now we are in the sadhaka cycle, so we feel a different form of ecstasy. Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur comments on this verse that this is a unique feature in the mood of the highest devotees. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was ecstatic, exhibiting this ecstatic mood of love and separation, specifically in Jagannath Puri. This is the great understanding. Where are you, my Lord? And in this way, he would go everywhere and searching. Right? Hey Radhe Vajadevike Chalalite. Hey Nandasu Nokutaha. Shi Govardhana Kalpapada Patale Kalindi Vane Kutaha. Hey Krishna, where are you? Hey Radhe, where are you? Hey Lalite, are you in Govardhan? Are you in Kalindi? Where are you? This searching. This is the mood of the highest form of devotional service. Because separation from Krishna, Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur comments, actually nourishes and enhances our devotion. When we think, wait, this separation is painful, why would we want it? But actually, this separation further enriches and intensifies our love. We say in English, distance makes the heart grow. Well, in spiritual life, this vipralamba, it becomes the highest epitome of love. Why else Krishna would leave the dearmost residence of Vrindavan? He didn't actually leave. He manifested back into their hearts. But externally he left. Why? To give this mood of vipralamba to the residents of Vrindavan. We read and we feel and we see pain and anguish. But actually, it was nourishing and enriching their experience. So this vipralamba mood, this mood of separation, is actually the highest mood. It intensifies the love. And in separation, we see this incessant and intense remembering of Krishna in his pastimes. One never forgets. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he came to show this. He is the embodiment and the incarnation of Vipralamba Seva. And so many pastimes he performed. In a minute, maybe I'll share a couple that exhibit this mood. But to comment at this point about this growth of bhakti, we see in Chaitanya Charitamrita, in Madhya Lila, that the bhakti is described by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu as a creeper. a vine. He says the Bhakti Lata Beej. The Bhakti Lata Beej is inserted into the heart by the mercy of Guru and Krishna. And then the Jiva must grow that Bhakti creeper. And he says there are two primary ways to water this vine, this creeper. And that is chanting and hearing. By good chanting and good hearing, we water this Bhakti creeper and it starts to grow. And we know a vine, even in a mature state, is very delicate. One snip of the scissors is gone. Not like a tree. As it grows, it becomes very... Bhakti is described like a vine, a creeper. So we must protect it with good association, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says. Put a fence around our bhakti to protect it. But as we keep watering and keep growing by good hearing and chanting, this vine grows. And where does it go? It grows further. Ultimately, it pierces the material universe. It crosses the Viraja River and continues to grow and grow by hearing and chanting. It goes through all the different Vaikuntha planets in the spiritual world and comes to Goloka Vrindavan. And it enters Goloka Vrindavan and it continues to the center of the lotus-like world where Sri Radha Krishna are situated. And this creeper keeps growing and it resides at the feet of Krishna. And when it resides there, then one fruit emerges from that creeper, and that is Krishna Prema. That is the Krishna Prema. That is the fruit of our bhakti. That is the ultimate fruit. And it happens, it grows from the conditioned state, from the initial stages of bhakti by the watering process of hearing and chanting. This is how Chaitanya Mahaprabhu explains how it grows. It's an amazing progression to the point where even a moment away from Krishna is like 12 years or more. This is what will happen. And so now we have some appreciation why the gopis of Vrindavan were complaining about Lord Brahma have creating these islands. What kind of creator are you that you have to create these islands? They're disturbing my darshan of the Supreme Lord. This is their mood. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu displayed these beautiful pastimes in Jagannath Puri. He showed this mood of separation. Once he was moving through Jagannath Puri and he was just dreaming of being in Vrindavan. And everything he saw reminded him of Vrindavan. And once he saw a hill of sand in a garden, the Tota garden. And so he ran thinking, oh, Govardhan is here, Govardhan is here. And he jumped and just started digging and digging and digging. And bam, his hands hit one beautiful deity of Krishna. And that was then unearthed. And it became Tota Gopinath. How many of you have seen Tota Gopinath? Very sweet deity. This deity became the most worshipable deity of Gadadhar Pandit, the dearmost associate of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And Tota Gopinath was installed in this temple. Very beautiful deity. As Gadadhar Pandit became quite old in his material terms, he was unable to be able to reach high to put on the shringar, the crown, and the jewels. And so out of the endless compassion, one day Gopinath sat down. And still to this day, you'll see now the deity is in a sitting position. You have ever seen a deity in a seated position? This is Tota Gopinath. And it was discovered in this mood of separation by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Very sweet. Another sweet pastime related with Gadadhar Pandit. When Nimai, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, in his childhood days, he would be frantically searching, where is Krishna? Where is Krishna? And he would start to, throw himself around. And one day Gadadhar Pandit grabbed him and said, Nimai, calm down, calm down. He said, where is Krishna? He said, Krishna's everywhere. He's in your heart. And then he started to tear apart his chest, trying to find Krishna. And Gadadhar Pandit embraced him and calmed him down. And Mother Sachi saw this. And she became very frightened and very comforted. She became frightened because what happens if Nimai goes into these ecstatic symptoms? And, no one is there to protect him. If Gadadhar Pandit was not there, he would have ripped open his his whole chest, and who knows, he might have died. Of course, motherly affection. She's thinking this way. So she asked Gadadhar Pandit, please, you always stay with Nimai. You never leave his side. And Gadadhar Pandit very sweetly said, okay. Now, very nice pastime here. Because Gadadhar Pandit is none other than who? Srimati Radharani. In Rajalila, Srimati Radharani was constantly being forbidden by the elders to see Krishna. Don't go see him. Always being restricted. And now Radharani is saying, see, now the elders are telling me, you never leave him. And so she got her ultimate desire and did not ever have a chance to leave. So like this, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, particularly in Puri, performed these very sweet pastimes of separation. So this is a very important mood that we see in this very intense love. Okay? So now we'll come to the final verse. This verse, Ashlisya va padetam pinashtima madarshana maramatam karotu va yatatata va viralato vat prana sakasusa eva napadaha. I know no one but Krishna as my Lord, and he shall remain so, even if he handles me roughly by his embrace, or makes me broken-hearted by not being present before me. Why? He is completely free to do everything and anything, for he is my worshipful Lord unconditionally. So this is the ultimate mood. This is pure Krishna Prema. Does not demand anything of Krishna. Unconditional love. This mood is perfected by Srimati Radharani. She is the personification of this Mahabhava love, pure Prema. Krishna becomes the complete soul of a devotee. He is their greatest treasure, greatest possession. Nothing else matters. Not even one's own health, their wealth, because nothing matters. Simply Krishna's happiness. That's all that the devotee in Prema Bhakti cares about. And this Krishna Prema, this mood, it is the intrinsic nature of all of us. This is our natural state of mind. How unnatural it feels today. Why? Because we have obscured, Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, our natural state by interactions with the material world. Through the dust accumulated in a heart, this natural state has become obscured. But this is actually the natural state of the spirit soul. This part and parcel of Krishna. Just as any child emerges from the mother's womb, where is that child's first love? To mother. No introduction is needed. Dear baby, this is your mother. It is just a natural state of calm and peace. Like that, the spirit soul has this very amazing mood. So, when we purify by good chanting without offenses, then we awaken this intrinsic nature within all of us. We're not obtaining it from somewhere else. We're simply awakening it from within. And this should give us the greatest confidence. To suggest this is impossible to achieve is to commit the fifth offense in chanting of the holy names, which is to consider the glories of chanting Hare Krishna to be imagination. To say that the chanting of Hare Krishna cannot bring this within me. No, we should know, yes, I am extremely fallen, and I have conditioning beyond any imagination. But I should have equal faith in the potency of the holy names, because they are non-different from Krishna himself. And by his potency, not by my own, but by the mercy of Krishna and the potency of his holy names, I can revive this intrinsic nature. That we can be confident in. And that's why Rupa Goswami says, Utsaha Nischya Daryat. We should be confident in the practice of devotional service. But confident that this is the process that is the only thing that is good for me. And confident in the mercy of Krishna. Our confidence must be rightly placed. So we should appreciate this very high mood and then understand it. In our practice of sadhana, it is for the purpose of purification to awaken this. Purification actually has no other purpose. We often think of purification to become free from sinful activities or free from... Purification means to awaken Krishna prema within our heart. To remove the obscurities that exist, that we have put there through our conditioning, that we can remove through the practice of our good sadhana. And that is what happens. And this perfection of Krishna is so supreme that Krishna himself tells the gopis, we see this verse, beautiful verse in Srimad Bhagavatam. He says that by your love and your devotion and your dedication, even with my immortal body, many, many lifetimes, I cannot repay you. I am eternally indebted to you. This is Krishna speaking. This is how intense the love is of his pure devotees. And how grateful Krishna is. How much he relishes that love. That he says, even with my immortal ability, I am eternally indebted to you. He's speaking to the gopis who are in full prema. This is, again, I told you, this section is going to be things that will not understand how to contextualize. But we know this is the result of offenseless chanting of the holy names. Good practice of sadhana. So this is the perfection. And the specific mood that we see being described here is a desire to please Krishna without any regard or concern for one's own happiness. We conventionally think, I want to, embrace Krishna or massage his feet or cook for him, right? But we see in this verse, what do we see? That whether it's in an embrace or complete abandonment, you are my unconditional object of love. Doesn't matter. It is not conditioned on what service I get, conditioned on what status I have. It is unconditional. Because what is the only goal of the devotee in Krishna Prema? To see Krishna happy. To see Krishna happy. And this mood is explained by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And it is the mood of Srimati Radharani that he is explaining. These verses are very, very delicate. Very, sometimes difficult to digest. But because Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami has put them here, I feel we must read them. But these verses are extraordinary. So after presenting this verse, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu begins to speak. And he begins to speak. I'm just finding the verse that he... So, I'll just read the verse before. This is verse 45. In that mood, the mind of Srimati Radharani was agitated, and therefore she spoke a verse of advanced devotion to her gopi friends. In the same spirit of ecstasy, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu recited that verse, and as soon as he did, he felt like Srimati Radharani. And what is that verse? This verse. So this is the verse that Srimati Radharani was speaking to her gopi friends, and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu repeated that verse, feeling in the mood of her. So after seeing this verse, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu begins to speak, and he's speaking in the mood of Srimati Radharani. These are Srimati Radharani's sentiments. Now here, what it means to be unconditional love of Krishna. Here what it means to have the focus of Krishna's happiness is supreme and no regard to my own happiness. I am a maidservant at the lotus feet of Krishna. He is the embodiment of transcendental happiness and mellows. If he likes, he can tightly embrace me and make me feel oneness with him. Or, by not giving me his audience, he may corrode my mind and body. Nevertheless, it is he who is the Lord of my life. Near or far, Lord of my life. My dear friend, just hear the decision of my mind. Krishna is the Lord of my life in all conditions. Whether he shows me affection or kills me by giving me unhappiness. Now this. Sometimes Krishna gives up the company of other gopis and becomes controlled, mind and body, by me. Thus he manifests my good fortune and gives other distress by performing his loving affairs with me. Or, now the other side. Since after all, he is very cunning, obstinate, debauchee, with a propensity to cheat, he takes to the company of others. He then indulges in loving affairs with them in front of me to give distress to my mind. Nevertheless, he is still the Lord of my life. I do not mind my personal distress. I only wish for the happiness of Krishna. For his happiness is the goal of my life. Now this statement, this next statement, is prema bhakti in a summary. However, if he feels great happiness in giving me distress, that distress is the best of my happiness. Can I reread that? However, if he feels great happiness in giving me distress, that distress is the best of my happiness. Can we think of anything more unconditional in love? This is the mood. I mean, it goes on further. If Krishna is attracted by the beauty of some other, wants to enjoy with her, but is unhappy because he cannot get her, I fall down at her feet, catch her hand, and bring her to Krishna to engage her for his happiness. This is Srimati Radharani. Later, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu describes the pastime of the very chaste wife of the Brahmana who was a leper, who desired to enjoy with a prostitute. And she was so chaste that she brought the prostitute to her husband. And her husband then became, aware of her great potency and said, "What am I doing?" and gave up that desire. But that leopard Brahmin, on his way back, happened to touch Markandeya Rishi. And he was cursed that by sunrise he would die. And by her great chastity, she was able to stop the rising of the sun and revive her husband. So that pastime is shared here. But we see this inexplicable, almost uncatchable in our consciousness extent of unconditional love. That my own distress, if that gives Krishna happiness, then that is the source of my happiness. Of course, Krishna has only one desire for his devotees. What is that desire? To see his devotees happy. This is the exchange of love. Krishna carries the same sentiments. He is willing to sacrifice everything for the happiness of his devotees. This exchange of love is a two-way street. And this is what awaits one who practices devotional service very sincerely. His highest mood of bhakti. Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati further comments that this mood is perfected by Srimati Radharani. Our endeavor should be to serve Krishna by following in her divine footsteps. the mood of bhakti that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu taught us is this. If my desire is to see Krishna happy, I know who can make Krishna most happy? Radharani. So my desire, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu teaching, is not to directly serve Krishna, because if I do, then that means he is momentarily separated from Radharani. So instead, my mood is not to satisfy my desire, but no, what can I do to see Krishna most happy? And that is to facilitate the exchange between Krishna and Srimati Radharani. This is the mood. So one even doesn't have any desire. I want this service, I want no. Simply how I can participate in being the servant of the servant of the servant of the servant of Srimati Radharani, in facilitating and engaging her in the service to Krishna, knowing that that is what gives Krishna the highest happiness, forgoing one's own desires. And this is how we can approach even our service. So, the goal is not what I do. The goal is singularly Krishna's happiness, whether near or far, embraced or broken-hearted. It is all focused on one thing. And this is what Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came to teach us. This mood of devotion. And by following these principles, following in the footsteps of Gauranga Mahaprabhu, by reciting these Siksakstakam prayers, we can inculcate this highest perfection of mood. And this is real love. Because real love is unconditional. It has no conditions. If this, if that. And when we do, Krishna's reciprocation is beyond compare. And that is why Krishna doesn't award this bhava and prema bhakti so easily. It is called sudharlabha, rarely achieved. Why? Because when a devotee expresses this type of love, Krishna says, I'm eternally indebted. He gives himself. So he'll test how sincere, how eager are we to reach it. So this is the Siksakstakam. So Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur summarizes these verses very nicely for us. He says the first teaches us the process of congregational chanting, the glories of Sankirtana, which is Param Vijayate, supremely victorious. The 7 incredible potencies of chanting. The second verse shows us how we can realize our ineptitude in taking up this chanting. These are the words of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. Very sweet. The third shows us a procedure for chanting the holy names. Tunadapi, Sunichena, Tarodapi, Shishna, Manina, and Manadina. These 4 things to chant the holy names. And the fourth shows how to rid oneself of the deception and detrimental mundane desires. Again, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur's beautiful words. Deception. Deceiving us that this is actually sweet when it is all misery. And the fifth tells us what is the jiva's original spiritual identity. And the sixth shows one how to experience his good fortune in coming closer to Krishna. Tears flowing from eyes like torrents of rain. And the seventh, the mood of separation after one attains the required spiritual elevation. The practice of our sadhana. That is what reaches. And the 8th verse shows us how to obtain the highest perfection in the matter of finding one's absolute necessity or goal. Having this unconditional love. The singular focus of Krishna's happiness. And we know when Srimati Radharani has this goal, we see these statements, how she could give herself, take another person to Krishna and put herself through that. How devastating that must be to her, right? We might sometimes think that is from material conditioning. Because we know one thing. In the transcendental competition of happiness between Krishna and Radharani, who wins? Radharani gets so happy serving in this mood. And when Krishna sees Radharani's happiness, he becomes happy. But when Radharani sees Krishna's happiness, her happiness goes higher. And then Krishna seeing Radharani's happiness, but always when Krishna jumps, she jumps further.
And he says, I can never catch up. I can never meet her extent of happiness. This Muda Prema Bhakti is so inconceivable that it surpasses the happiness of the complete whole, Krishna himself. How is that possible? Even Krishna himself cannot understand it. And thus, he appears as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in the mood of Srimati Radharani. Krishna himself comes and says, I want to taste this happiness that Srimati Radharani experiences in Prema Bhakti. And thus we will be celebrating Gaur Purnima in a few short days. This transcendental competition, Krishna Kaviraj Goswami explains in Adi Leela. You should read it. It is so sweet. The internal reasons for Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's appearance. That this is it. So we know, ultimately, the devotee of the Lord is on the receiving end of everything. We take one step to Krishna, he takes 100 to us. So this unconditional love is our greatest. So, this Siksakstakam prayers, I hope we have now understood their importance. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu gave us 8 verses to bring us to this topmost platform. What else could there be? There's nothing left. This is the complete essence, as we've been talking about. And the mercy of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is made it very simple, yet extraordinarily powerful. Chant the holy names of the Lord without offenses. Nothing else is required, and all will be achieved. These verses took us from sadhana bhakti to bhava bhakti to prema bhakti. They took us from sambandha gyan, our relationship, to acting in that relationship, abhideya gyan, to the fruit, prayojana. They took us from Shraddha all the way up to Krishna Prema. All contained within these 8 amazing verses. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur gives us one benediction. I'll read it. This is at the end of his commentary on Siksakstakam. This is a quote. He says, those surrender souls who read the Sri Siksakstakam prayers, which are the nectarian worlds flowing from the mouth of the Supreme Lord Gauranga with devotion, will certainly be attracted to the honey from Lord Chaitanya's lotus feet, and like the intoxicated bees, plunged into the lily-filled lake of Krishna Prema. 401 years after the advent of Lord Gauranga, the comment called Sri Sanbodhana Bhashyam has been composed by me, Srila Kedarnath Bhakti Vinod. This is the benediction. Those souls who read Siksakstakam prayers, what happens? Plunge into the lily-filled lake of Krishna Prema. Yes, we may not be capable. We should know we are not capable. But by the mercy of Guru Parampara, by the mercy of Gauranga Mahaprabhu, it is possible. So, I hope we've become inspired to learn and recite these verses, having some appreciation of their extreme importance to us. I hope we have become inspired to make chanting, our japa, the most important activity of our day. Often we approach our japa that we do in between different other activities of the day. As we have gaps in our day, we chant our rounds. But by studying this, I hope we become inspired to realize, actually, we should make japa the first and core activity of our day. Everything else can come after. Okay, we may have some responsibilities, grihastha duties, those are practical. But at least a measure of this. If we really want to imply this in a practical way, there's one reasonable practical way. We're not going to look at Facebook, not going to read a single message on WhatsApp, not going to surf YouTube, not going to go to the internet until my rounds are done in a day. Then you can do it to your heart's desire. But until your rounds are done, don't waste a moment. Yes, you may have to take care of the kids and do certain activities and those timing, those are all practical limitations. But this discipline, if we start to implement, until our rounds are done, not even a moment of 1 or 2 messages, because we know what happens with one message. We all know. By that time, we could have been bathing our soul in the holy names. So make japa the core activity of our day. Don't allow, oh, I'm busy. I have this and I have that. We have time. We don't yet have taste. But take on faith from the statements, from this commentary Bhakti Siddhanta Satyaka and Bhakti Vinod Thakur Srila Prabhupada have been giving us. That this is the prime benediction, the primary activity. Put a moat, a protective barrier around our japa. Don't let anything enter it. Social distance from our phone when we are chanting. And if we do, these results will manifest. But we must be determined. We must endeavor. That is the price we must pay for progress. Don't let the mind give us these excuses. Let the intelligence dictate what is reality. The intelligence knows what is possible and what is not. The mind will give all kinds of ideas. But at least in one practical way, no other distractions until your japa is done. Sound like a plan? Can do it? Then we'll see. So, we've learned these prayers are best for us. And now, on Gaur Purnima Day, we can beg to Gauranga Mahaprabhu to have some faith in these prayers, to have some strength, to intensify our desire, to understand what is our Gurudevam attraction. All these things, when we pray to Gauranga Mahaprabhu, Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami says, whatever is difficult becomes easy when we approach Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And what better day than on his appearance day to beg and soak up the mercy of Gauranga Mahaprabhu. And that should be the beginning of our lifelong begging for this mercy. And if we do, then we'll make success. And so finally, I would like to express my sincere and deepest gratitude to all of you for inspiring this session and asking for it and allowing me to swim in this unbelievable nectar. So many realizations come, and I'm very, very grateful to all of you. And I pray to hold on to all of your feet as we climb together this ladder towards Krishna Prema and come to the highest of all perfections. So I beg all of your blessings and forgiveness if anything I misspoke. And I want to leave everybody with one final inspiration from Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur. He says, the Siksakstakam prayers are the essence of all Vedic literatures for the Rasika Bhakta, pure devotee, who relish rasa. These prayers, having emanated from the lips of the Supreme Lord Himself, are indeed the absolute truth. Hence, they should be read, recited, and worshipped daily by sincere and fortunate souls. These prayers should be their constant companion, learnt and taken to heart. So let us pray that we can follow this great instruction by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur. Thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnavrinda.
Nitya Krishna Prabhu ki jai.
Any questions or comments today? Everybody's got it?
Still assimilating.
Prabhuji, the Krishna Prema that needs that much exciting and then all like the water flowing on your ears, means from eyes and everything. When hearing that one, is that possible to achieve, Prabhuji?
Don't commit the fifth offense in chanting of the holy names. We should not ask, is it possible?
Yeah.
When?
The question we should ask,
How can I do it?
do I want it? How bad do I want it? The holy names are so powerful. That's why Chaitanya Mahaprabhu opened this Siksakstakam with the 7 powerful effects, the perfections of Sankirtana. Because we have this doubt. Is it really possible for me? I am so fallen. I'm just thinking of myself.
Yeah.
It seems impossible. But it's not impossible. But we have to do our part. We have to have faith in the potency of the holy names. We have to have the faith in the instructions of Guru. We have to have the faith in the instructions of Shastra. But we have to take those things. If we don't, yes, then it is impossible. If we don't, it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen by some willy-nilly chance. It's going to happen by the process that's prescribed. If you follow that process, it's guaranteed. It's not likely, or maybe it's guaranteed. We all want guarantees. This is the guarantee. But still, for some reason, we let the mind dictate reasons not to do it. It's our greatest foolishness. That's why Bhakti says this, we are being deceived. We're being deceived by our own mind. We're being deceived by our own mind. Right now, we made even have faith, and a moment later, an hour later, it's gone. Why? The deception of our mind. Don't let it deceive us. Let the intelligence take hold. Take these steps. Take these actions. It is guaranteed. And don't doubt it. The only impossibility that we should feel is because of our susceptibility to take to the dictations of the mind. So stop that today, and it'll all happen.
Thank you.
So do we get that Baba and Prema Bhakti in this Grahastha life, Prabhuji, or we have to renounce everything? So
Oh, nice question. Bhakti is independent of any ashram, meaning it is perfectly executed in all ashrams. We studied this Siksakstakam prayer under, primarily the commentary we discussed was Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur. Bhaktivinoda Thakur was?
Grahastha.
How many children he had?
10, 11.
More than all of us. What kind of job he had?
Magistrate.
Highest position in the British government for an Indian. He was a big time magistrate. And what was his position? Krishna Mahabhava. He was a perfected man. So this state is achievable in all ashrams. So one does not need to retire to the forest, renounce it. No. It is actually perfectly executed. And if we look at Panchatattva, right, the 5 Panchatattva, right, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself showed both perfection in Grihastha ashram and perfection in Sannyasa ashram. Lord Nityananda, Grihastha ashram. Advaita Acharya, Grihastha ashram. Gadadhar Pandit, Sannyasa ashram. Or Salma. Srivas Thakur, Grihastha ashram. So in Panchatattva itself, he told Nityananda Prabhu, you take wife and you go preach to the Grihasthas. Why? To bring up and elevate the brother. He took sannyas to preach to the sannyasis, to get the audience needed. But then he told Nityananda, his cousin, you enter Grihastha ashram and you preach. So Grihastha ashram is very potent. And in many ways, it's great because we have a partner who can support us. Yes, there are responsibilities, But don't believe and acknowledge or allow the grahastha responsibilities to think we cannot practice about devotional service. Krishna knows what obstacles we have, what challenges we have. He is not looking at what we give to him. He is looking at what we keep for ourselves. We may think, oh, somebody in one ashram, they can serve 24 hours, they're fortunate. Krishna is looking and saying, when we have settled all our responsibilities, how much of that time have we used for him? That is what he's looking at. So we settle our grahastha duties, we take them very seriously. We must meet those responsibilities. Grahastha ashram means that we have taken the ultimate service to Krishna. How? We're bringing children into the world. Whose children are they?
Krishna's.
They're not ours. They are Krishna's. And we have given the responsibility to bring them to Krishna. What greater responsibility and opportunity we have to serve and please Krishna. So it is a great venue, forum to practice Krishna consciousness. Beautiful forum. Yes, Grahastha ashram, very powerful.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Yeah, and we see in our whole parampara is filled with illustrious grahasthas achieving perfection till the very end, complete perfection. So all ashrams are capable. The key is to practice it sincerely.
But still, Prabhuji, I'm sorry to ask this,
No,
but
please.
Srila Prabhupada having a family, but he was in Grahastha, but after renouncing his family, he became sannyasi and then he achieved that perfection, right, Prabhuji? So, how do we have to follow him, like after settling our care, so we have to renounce everything and then go back to sannyasi, or?
No,
How?
it's all time, place, and circumstance. Bhaktivinoda Thakur never renounced. Why? Who was his son? Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur. His ashram was facilitating his devotional life. But Prabhupada did not purify. Prabhupada came from the spiritual world. He was a Senapati Bhakta. He was sent by Krishna himself. So he was pure from birth. But there are different activities that we see that teach us different principles. So if Grahastha ashram is precluding our devotional service, then there are prescribed responsible ways to that. It's a delicate conversation, but it's a responsible way, not an irresponsible way. If you still see today, Srila Prabhupada's children are great devotees, wonderful lovers of Srila Prabhupada. So and sometimes there are disturbances in the process, but that is the exception, not the rule. And that's what we see, in our sampradaya, full of grahastha ashram and sannyasa ashram and brahmacharya ashram. So it is not a requisite. In certain rare circumstances, it may be, but it's not the norm. And that is the fortune we have, that Srila Prabhupada established this International Society for Krishna Consciousness. If you see, it is the ultimate nurturer of Grahastha ashram. It's created this whole ecosystem where Grahastha ashram can flourish in Krishna consciousness together, engaging the whole family in devotional service. We go to Radha Kunj Vihari's temple. Who cannot render service? The whole family can be engaged in loving ecstasy of service. Right? It is not exclusive to this or to that. It is all inclusive. And that is the unimaginable mercy of Srila Prabhupada to establish that for all. So we are the beneficiaries of that. So we should take advantage and utilize it to its fullest. No, it's good. Yes.
Prabhu, I'm not sure if this is a realization or a question, but I'll put it out to you. So from the last verse, as you were explaining and we were reading it, I was just feeling like, see, all these days from birth, like till now, I have been practiced to, or most of us have been practiced to. Pray means ask something to God, right? Pray means like when we were young, please help me pass this exam, please give me this, please give me that. Once you get married, once you have children, we start praying for our parents, for like even at home, please take care of them, I'm going away. Or if they are not at home by this time, please take care of their safety, let them return home safely.
Yep.
So constantly our thoughts are anxious and asking for something or praying for something in this way.
Mhm.
But from this last verse, like asking for distress, if it is more happy to you, give me distress. So that mood, I felt like we should ask only for prema, Krishna, give me your prema. I know that you will take care of everything, including me, whoever is near to me. And all I need is your prema. Is that the right prayer to ask, Prabhu?
You have understood the synthesis of this whole seminar. We need to know what to ask for. That's it. The soul is active. It's going to have desires. But what we should ask for, please pick me up from this ocean of death and place me as one of the atoms at your lotus feet. When will my eyes flow? When will my voice choke up? Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is asking. He's asking for Krishna. Because one who has knowledge knows that Krishna Prema, everything becomes settled. Watering the root of the tree nourishes all branches of the tree. But it takes intelligence. So one then realizes, I don't need to pray for anything else. Simply intensify my desire. Please, Krishna, help me remain strong. Give me the attraction for the holy names. This whole Siksakstakam teaches us what we can pray for. Each verse gives us things we can meditate on and pray for. Right? And we should pray daily in our japa, praying to Krishna. Please, I'm chanting, but the taste is not coming. Please help me purify, remove the contamination from the heart. Because Krishna Prema is the ultimate achievement. Nadanam, Najanam, Nasundarim, all of this is useless deception. Thinking, oh, this is important. So, that is why, you know, when a child is constantly asking mother and father, give me this, give me this, give me that, do we consider that child very lovely and obedient? Do we? But when the child is constantly just rendering service in the home, the mother and father, what does mother and father do in return?
Do everything for him.
More than what they even asked for. Let us not be the disobedient child. Let us be the loving child. Just serve Krishna. Don't worry, He is our eternal Father. He'll give things that we cannot even ask for. We can't even contemplate. Remember, in this exchange, Srimati Radharani has more happiness, though she is saying, my distress is the source of your happiness. Krishna is saying, good, boom, let me give you distress. No, he showers so much love to her. So much love he gives. So much so he gives himself to her. But her love is unconditional. Even if he didn't, she would still love him. And that is the perfection of love. Okay? Anything else? Okay. Thank you very much again. So Prabhupada. Shri Shri Siksakstakam praise.
Jai.
Gaur Purnima Mahotsav.
Jai.
Hare
Hare Krishna.